Hi. I think that this is right now. I tried to turn it, but it didn't work. So I was trying to do it sideways, but I was like showing up on your screen sideways. So let me see if I can get share added to our call. Invite. I hate it when it's like this, where it's not side by side, but it is what it is, I think. Okay, let me text Sharon, let her know I'm on. Let's see if this works. Hi, everybody. Back. Hi, Heidi. Yay. Okay, Cher. Perfect. I'm adding you on. I know Bridget was texting me I was sideways. I don't know why I was sideways. So hey, I hate it when we're like this, like up and down, but
I know.
it kept sending, like showing it up sideways. So it is what it is.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Oh,
Can you hear
good.
me?
I sure can.
Okay. So I'm excited about this topic. So I'll tell everybody what happened. So we got basically somebody messaged yesterday and was like, hey, let's talk about birth control. Does anybody want to talk about it? And I was like, well, I don't usually offer to do videos, but I love this topic. It's like near and dear to my heart. This is one of the things that I just wish I knew more about, years and years ago, one of the many health topics that had I known different things 10 years ago, I would have done things so differently. And so I love to talk about this topic. So what about you?
Oh, same thing. It's one of the main things that comes up when we talk about health, and whether it be like just with friends or family or health workshops, definitely without question, the hormone, the birth control, kids, our daughters, it comes up every single time. You are someone whose brain I always pick about hormones, so that's always fun. I think it's a good excuse to go live and to have this available to people. So,
Well, I'm by no means an expert. And I also want to make sure we say we're not judging anyone. Like this is not a judgment.
no, no,
I'll make personal choices for tons of reasons. And we all do the best we can, right? Every
yeah,
day.
yeah,
COVID is, right? We're all doing the best we can. No judgment, but just information, because information is power. And if you know better, you can make different choices. So
for
a lot of
sure.
this health information, I feel like, is just so hidden. It's buried. You
Mm-hmm.
really have to find it. So like you
Yep.
were asking me yesterday, where did I get this information? I buy a ton of books. My husband loves that. And we have a huge library because it's really hard to find this information though. So when I find
Mm-hmm.
it, I love to keep it and be able to reach back out to it and reference it again. So
Well, and friends, I made her literally take a picture of her books and send them to me because we both have a hunger for knowledge, and she's a fantastic researcher, and especially on this topic.
well, maybe I'll put in the comments too the books that I use as resources
Ooh.
and one audio that's really fantastic. It's a CD. It has some religious undertones. This is not religious. Our
Nope.
conversation here is just about health. And so I'll tell you real quick my story. I did use
Yeah.
birth control before I knew any better. I actually used birth control, and part of our conversation is about puberty. And I did use birth control in puberty because I was put on Accutane because my acne was so bad, which ding, 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 that was a gut issue. I had no idea at the time, but it was a gut issue that I was trying to fix through all the things like antibiotics, which also made the gut problem worse, exacerbated the problem. But I was on Accutane, and to be on Accutane, the doctor said you had to be on birth control even though I wasn't sexually active, but it was just one of those things you did. But I remember taking my first birth control pill and throwing up and being like not right, like what's going on? So, now I understand that was affecting my hormones. So I was on that at that point. Then I was put on it later for low progesterone, heavy bleeding, like all the things that I went into the OBGYN for, I was put on birth control for. Little did I know that was happening to every other woman everywhere. And so
Yep.
some problem I feel like, and I know is true, is that we don't have enough research about female bodies and female hormones. And so knowledge is power. And one of the things that I think is really important for women to understand is that we need to cycle, and we need to chart our cycles. We need to know what's going on with our body, understand our bodies, because they're very complicated. Men's hormones are straight. Our hormones are different every single day. And we need to understand what's going on with our hormones to be able to tell when something is wrong, and then be able to find that natural solution that's not birth control. That's not the answer at all. It's a Band-Aid.
Yep.
So go ahead and tell me your story, I guess.
Let me repeat it here. So for me, a whole different series of issues. So my hormones, I did not understand then what I came to understand much later, that my hormones were really the problem for so long. But for me, my initial indicator was migraine headaches. And I got them really, really young, 7th grade, junior high, and they were really bad. I would get 3 to 5 migraines a week. I was missing a ton of school, and everything was a migraine trigger. Well, a very common solution for migraines is, well, I've got to back up a little bit. My periods were also really bad. So I'm saying two different things. So when I started my cycle, it was really bad, and that was linked to my migraines. So a really common solution they'll put kids on for their periods is a birth control pill. But for me, the birth control pill ended up being another migraine trigger. So it was so messed up. And Tori, you just were telling me something about that just now when we were talking before this call. Sorry, I feel like I have light like right in my face. About how common that is, and it's completely ineffective. I'm super glad that it was a migraine trigger for me, because with hindsight, had I been on it all that time because of how bad my cycle was, it would have been far more damage. But it was interesting to me how immediately at such a young age, just early puberty, early cycle, and they immediately put me on the birth control pill to shut that down. As a matter of fact, you shared something I want you to share. I know you're going to hear about what that does to young girls when you immediately shut down and control that cycle, and then they just let the years just log,
Yes. So what happens, birth control is synthetic hormones. And so we need to understand, in general, synthetic medications, synthetic hormones, synthetic things do not belong in our bodies. And it's really hard to grasp that. It's like, yeah, synthetic things aren't belong in our bodies, but they're everywhere. They're given to us like it's normal medications, foods, things in our environment, even in our water supply. It's terrible. And we need to start thinking about what's going into our body. So synthetic hormones do not belong in our body. And when they're in our body, they cause all kinds of problems. So they cause problems like you noticed immediately, you've got your side effects. But then later down the road, they cause other side effects. So they actually suppress your normal production. So birth control is a synthetic hormone, and it's actually was meant to be, from my husband's research, a male steroid. And men who use that as male steroids, they cycle on and off because they know it's going to affect their fertility. Yet women are on them for 10 years at a time. They're on them for a decade, from like 19 to 40. They get off them whenever they're ready to have babies. They can't have babies, and they don't know why. Well, it's because those synthetic hormones have shut down our natural hormone production. So the synthetic hormones actually cause an imbalance. They lower our progesterone. Most of us are high in estrogen because we have all kinds of toxins in our environment that raise our estrogen, and our progesterone is lowered. And so what I also researched and found out is that when you go on synthetic hormones, your body reacts and tries to produce more progesterone because it knows it's low. But what happens is our bodies can't produce more progesterone, so our bodies produce more estrogen. So we're further exacerbating that problem of too much estrogen. And so our bodies just are low progesterone. So I remember during my miscarriages, I had years where I was miscarrying babies and I couldn't figure out why. And my gut instinct was, this is not normal. There's something wrong. Yeah. I looked back at all my old charts and all my old information from when we did like natural family planning training and stuff like that when we first got married, and found some old charts that said I was low progesterone, like back when I was, 20. So it's really interesting to me that I've had low progesterone all these years. Why? There's so many reasons. There's so many things that impact our low progesterone, but they affect us later in life when we try to have babies. So, and then we were talking about puberty. So during my research about puberty, it's fascinating and really scary. Because if you think about it, if you suppress your natural hormone production during puberty, when your hormones are supposed to be doing some really important things for your body, what is that doing in the long run? So I researched that actually when you use birth control during puberty, I was explaining how your body's trying to produce more progesterone, but it actually produces more estrogen. And one study showed that there was actually almost 100% of girls who use birth control during puberty have endometriosis later. Yeah. And what happens is this extra estrogen causes cysts on your ovaries, which creates more testosterone, which leads to PCOS, insulin insensitivity, weight gain, all these things that women are battling. So many women are battling this. I would almost say a majority feels like, when you women.
For sure.
Yeah. So it's doing some real damage. The other side effects of birth control are huge. It's actually listed by the WHO as a carcinogen. And I was talking about water supply, our water supply too. So it's affecting everybody, all of us, our little boys. It's in all of us. Osteoporosis from the low hormones, low sex drive, which affects your body forever, blood clots, strokes, so many things. So it's really important to kind of research what you're putting into your body and what it's doing to your body.
And also, it's tied. Tori, I know that you could say this part better than me, but the link to the gut. My gut was such a disaster and my hormones were such a disaster. I had so many different symptoms, and to understand that everything is working together, your body's trying so hard to work in its systems together, and they all overlap each other. And so with, for me, like we're talking about hormones in general, the birth control pill, but hormones in general. I love how Tori just talked about synthetics, because my first thyroid supplement was synthetic. And I was on it for years. And I was literally told by my endocrinologist that if I was dependent on it, I would become more dependent on it. And if I ever went off of it, I would literally die a slow, painful death. Like, it was the way that it was described. It sounds so morbid, but he literally said, do you understand, if you stop taking it, your thyroid, of course, governs your metabolism, and your body can't metabolize food without thyroid hormones. So, you've got these people who are severely ill with thyroid disease, who are obese, and they're actually malnourished, which seems so opposite, because you're obese but malnourished because you can't metabolize food for nutrition. Well, that's from a synthetic hormone. When I switched and took natural thyroid, everything changed. So again, now, my body needed natural thyroid support at that time, but guess what happened? Because it wasn't synthetic, and like Tori said, it wasn't shutting down my own natural production of thyroid hormone, my thyroid began to come back. And I was told I'd never come off of it, and I totally did. So it doesn't make any, anyway, so that's just our own little like life testimonial of synthetic hormones in general, how bad they are for you. And the birth control pill is just plain synthetic. There's no other way.
Yes, and birth control is one of the number one gut disruptants. I think it's one of the number one. I know antibiotics,
top.
And it's because probably partially because we're on it so long, and we take it every day. It's not. It's just there's no way it can't interfere with our gut. So our gut is actually destroyed by any medication, over the counter, prescription. Yeah, I mean
anything, Tylenol, Advil, anything that you take. So I'm not like, anti that. I just try really hard to completely stay away from it if I can. But, I always talk to people like, if I've got a child running a really scary fever and I want to give a children's dose of a Tylenol or an Advil, I've done it, of course. But I've also found that if I heal their gut, that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen anymore. So, it's knowledge is power. And my gut was so completely torn up, which of course affected my hormones. And now, against what I was told over and over again, all of that is totally different. I'm off of every medication. I don't have migraines anymore. I don't have thyroid disease anymore. I don't have cystic ovaries. I don't have infertility. I don't have endometriosis. All the things that were totally stacked up that I lived with for so many decades. I lived with them for decades. Now the reversal took time. It took me months to a year, probably. I really had a big change at about the 4-month window, but by the end of the first year, I was off of all my medications, and that was really a really big deal.
I'm discovering more and more and more how long it takes to heal, and then if you've been sick for 35 years, it takes to heal. But even healing children, and our bodies are so complex, yet the root causes of all these problems are some of the same things. It's the inflammation, it's the gut health, it's all the same things, and we're doing the same things to our bodies in different ways. But it's so important that we look for the root cause and not just go to the doctor and look for a Band-Aid answer. And it's really upsetting to me. My husband always tells me I'm like an advocate for young women, because I feel like young women go to the doctor, and I was one of them, even though I was fairly educated, but I still went to the doctor and looked for answers and came home with a prescription and trusted that was the answer. But there's like 3 or 4 different Band-Aids that we get as women when we go to the OBGYN. We get birth control and list the things, the migraines, basically the things they don't really understand. We get the birth control for that. And then when we try to have babies and we're infertile or having miscarriages, there's the Clomid, the IUI, the IVF. Like, those are the solutions. I needed progesterone. I needed a natural hormone that my body had shut down producing because of the environment and synthetics and things like that. I didn't need Clomid, but I was offered Clomid, and I was offered those solutions. Clomid would have helped me to produce more eggs to have more miscarriages. It wasn't the answer. So you have to, and I just want everybody to understand, like, you have to be an advocate for your own health and seek that information and be that, weird person who starts asking these questions. I was reading a book the other day about someone who finally figured out her health crisis. She asked the lady in front of her at the bank because she looked like she was healthy. She's like, I was searching out for healthy people. And I was like, you look healthy. What are you doing? But that's what we need to be doing, like we need to be like, we need to be finding the answers, and don't stop until you find the answers to your health problems, because there are there are ways to heal your body.
So tell me this. So someone comes to you and has a young girl, a high school daughter, who's got really, really painful periods. Like what kind of hope, do you give instead? Because, she'll go to the doctor and she'll get offered the birth control pill.
For young girls,
Mm-hmm.
this is something that I'm going to have to research even more now that I'm a kid who's getting into the, that age. But I think gut health is so key. And lowering inflammation and eating right. I'm realizing now, so my journey is still going, right? Everybody who has a health journey, you have a health crisis and then you start to heal your body. And it's a journey that goes on, I swear, forever. And you unfold a new layer and you get healthier, but there's still that thing that you're trying to heal. None of us are perfectly healthy with no problems. We don't live in a bubble and we always have these things we're learning. And so I feel like what I've been learning lately, I started my plexus journey where our health improved so much, just immensely, but I still had these things that I'm working on healing. And I'm realizing now you can't out supplement a bad diet. Is that how you say it? Like you can't supplements do help. And
tagline, say that louder. You can't out supplement a bad diet. I hope all of you heard Tori. I've never heard you say that, and I think you should say that.
I'll say it very often because I feel like the people that you help, when people you're helping at the beginning of their health journey can't imagine changing their diet. And I have been there. If you told me to give up sugar, I would have turned around, pretended like I didn't hear you, and been like, I would have been over here, in my head, I knew there was no way I could give up sugar. And it was because I was beginning on my health journey. Now we're doing all kinds of crazy, I gave the kids a kale smoothie this morning and they're like, Mom, this is too much. I was like, okay. So I had to cover it up with more stuff. But I'm we're at a place where we're dairy-free, sugar-free, gluten-free. I never could have done.
Sure.
And so I feel like it's a journey though. So the reason our supplements that we take are so beautiful is because they work for 95% of people, because that is all they need to get started on that health journey. And if you want to continue, you can, but otherwise you're going to have a quality of life and a gut health that's going to keep you healthy for years. If you want to continue to, make yourself healthier with healthier food choices, it's a tool to help you get there. But
absolutely.
Anyway, so
I would say too, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, on the, you heard, Tori just talk about the gut health, the inflammation, but the insulin piece, the blood sugar piece was, had I known back in high school, that was my problem, my labs back then didn't show an insulin problem. So no one ever, and back, I'm 49, so this is a long time ago, but people didn't talk about insulin as it relates to hormones. We know a lot more about insulin today and our hormones. And we know that insulin is a dominant hormone, which means our other hormones copy it. So if I'm having horrific periods and migraines, no one ever looked at my hormones, even though I had horrific periods. They just wanted to give me the birth control pill. And then when they couldn't because of my migraines, they gave me pain medicine. That's it. Literally it's pain medication, but no one ever helped me figure out why my hormones were so out of whack. What was going on with me? Well, now today we have so much more information and we understand insulin. Insulin being a dominant hormone. Let me give you an example from my story. Okay. My periods are really bad at a young age, my teens. Okay. And then I begin to collect more and more ailments over time in my life. Never did my insulin or anything blood sugar related show up in any labs for years and years and years, but they started to later. Okay. Maybe 30s. I'm trying to figure out when I first began to get these little markers that would show up on annual blood draws. Oh, I think we're going to do that glucose test. I don't know if you guys know the one where you drink the really thick syrupy drink and then you go in. So something showed up that made them want to test that. But then after that result, nope, you're fine. Nope, you're fine. That happened a few years in a row. Okay, so think this through. I have a hormone problem. I now know with hindsight that insulin's a dominant hormone. And had I treated my insulin as if it were the problem way early on, I could have prevented and received relief. Didn't do that. So decades go by. Then suddenly what's happening? The insulin problem that was one all along is beginning to show up in my lab work. But then the second test was not enough to treat me for a diabetes or hypoglycemia or whatever it would have been. I say both of those because I have both in my family, but neither were diagnosed for me. But I had horrific, my hormone problems were getting worse. And early menopause in my 30s. Of course, endometriosis, cystic ovaries, infertility, my thyroid, another hormone. My hormones were out of whack. Guess what happened when I understood the science behind insulin? Every one of those things went away. You guys, I got my period back. Okay. I literally had gone through early menopause. I got my period back. I was able to have 2 children. I reduced my thyroid hormone year over year, getting the dose just shrinking and shrinking of what I needed. And it was a natural thyroid. I found a doctor who supported that, but even that was reducing. Everything changed. No more cystic ovaries, no more endometriosis, nothing when I treated insulin. So you have to understand, if you have young people coming at you, Tori's right, you got to treat the gut health, and you've got to learn a little bit more about where all of our hormones are all intertwined and they all work together. So if you have a period problem, don't just assume we're only dealing with estrogen or even progesterone. We only have so many hormones in the body. There's not that many to study, and you can get to the bottom of this. I'm so grateful for knowledge now. Again, it's a little late for me, but like Tori said, we've got daughters coming up into this now, and the answer is different. And the amount of health that we can preserve, you know, when Tori talked about all the different things she's had to figure out in her life now because of what she went through, we can pass that on. That's why we do these lives, you know. Anyway.
Well, one of the things that I think was probably overlooked when you looked at your glucose levels, one thing I tell people to always check is, don't just say I'm in the normal range. What is that range? What exact number are you? And then research that range. I have some natural health books that have a different range than our
Interesting.
thinks is normal. I mean, I went to the doctor and had a full blood work. And I think I've told my story before that about a year ago, I went to the doctor before Plexus and had my full blood work. I was low on vitamin D. I was low on all this stuff. They were like, you're not absorbing anything. Why was I not absorbing things? My acid in my stomach was off. It was too low. So I was not absorbing my food because I went nutrients from my food and vitamins because my gut was out of balance.
Yeah.
So when I got my gut in balance and all of that stuff, I went back to the doctor. He's like, you are a picture of health. There is nothing I can do for you. Everything is perfect. And I was like, yeah, but I still feel like I'm low progesterone. I know by looking at my cycles that some of the markers that I see on my cycles, I'm a little low progesterone. I'm not terribly low anymore, but I am still low, and I'm getting older, which means that the problem is going to be getting worse. But looking at his range, I'm perfect. Well, you just have to look at the ranges, because like my husband went in for his testosterone or his test, and he was, you know, good, but for a different aged man. Like, I mean, if you look at, you know, for a 38-year-old man or whatever, it wasn't normal. It wasn't optimal either. What is normal? What is optimal? Are we optimizing our hormones? Are we optimizing our health so that we can live the best life? Or are we just like, okay, like, what do you accept for your health? Because I personally want to feel as young as possible and be as active as possible and be able to be alive as long as I can to enjoy my life. So optimizing,
which we can. I think a lot of people hear that and think, oh, that's just for the people who are genetically healthier. They don't understand that we can choose that. We actually have that option. And I think that people think that, no, you just kind of like decline little by little, you know. And this doctor of mine who I love so much, she taught me everything. She said, we're meant to thrive until we die. Like, we're not supposed to just, oh, I'm in my 40s now. In the 40s, that's common. Oh, in the 50s, this is common. That's just, it's just not true, you know?
No, I don't accept that. And I'm all about Suzanne Summers and all the natural hormones. Charlie and I kid all the time that I'm going to, like, especially when I'm done cycling, I'm going to take all the natural hormones I can so I look and feel like I'm 20, even if it means that there's like creams everywhere. I don't care. I think it's really important to optimize our hormones. I think they're huge for women. We underestimate how much our hormones affect us. Our mood, our weight, our sex drive. I mean, just name a list of things, cancer risk, like all of the things. And so I really.
But what you said was natural hormones, like that. She began this, you guys, with what we know now about synthetic hormones. And so that is such an important, it's like, that's the thing. She's not saying don't need hormones. No. We have a choice. You have to do natural hormones.
Yeah. It's, you know, it's all about optimizing our health and putting the things into our bodies. And I'm learning that as I, you know, going from the SAD diet, right, the standard American diet, and growing up on, you know, Twinkies and stuff. And then, you know, changing my diet and learning it matters. All the things. I'm adding kale. We're eating kale. I'm like, I'm reading about taking weeds out of the garden and eating them. Like that's and next year I'll be like, duh, yeah, of course I'm eating like the weeds from my garden. Like I'll be like eating lettuce. I mean, it's a progression. Like you learn and you grow and you do different things. And
I've actually got this friend from Mexico who does that. She knows exactly what weeds are really good for you because growing up there, they were poor. And it was a staple part of their nightly meal. And it was so good for them.
Well, I mean, think about it. I buy a box of tea with dandelion in it. Why not just like pull it from the garden? Like I'm some of the stuff that's like, we're growing in our health journey.
We all want Tori to write a book. All of us.
Well, I'll never forget the time I was boiling chicken feet and Charlie came home and he's like, this is like this is new. Like you have hit a whole new level of hippie. And I'm like, I know. you know, like here we are, like
Just say you're welcome, honey. You're welcome.
Know. And now I'm talking about Dandy eating the weeds from the garden.
Yeah.
But you do what you do to make sure you're healthy and that your kids are healthy and you're optimizing your health. And so one of the pieces that matters to hormones and for our kids is gut health, but it's also weight. If you research weight and how like being overweight during your pubescent years is detrimental to your hormone production, it can affect your hormones forever. So that's a piece, is making sure the kids are healthy and their weight is correct. And I think I've posted before about how funny it is that my kids, when they drink their the insulin stuff that we take, so the insulin supplements we take, they don't crave sugar, and it's awesome. It's like it's huge. And being able to eat right, because eating right and what we put in our bodies matters. So
well, and how often do we just think that this is the type of person that just happens to have a sweet tooth? We think that it's just kind of like, oh, she has a sweet tooth. No, it's a thing. And it's your body talking to you, and it means something. It means you've got to fix something, and you totally can. It's not just this arbitrary random thing. And if you guys don't know, I mean, that's one of the reasons I'm so grateful for social media, is that you can just shout out there, does anybody know anything about sugar cravings? And you will have people like Tori who are a new level of hippie. I mean, I love that. She's like my favorite person to talk to. But I care about this kind of research too. And people come to me like, oh, Sherston, do you know about this yet? If I don't, I know the people to go find that might know something, or I've stumbled upon it already. And you can find it. But it's true. Sugar cravings are an indicator. And you make a very, very good point about children who are heavyset when they go through puberty. That is such a big deal. And what it can alter and make difficult for these kids is preventable, and it's just not fair to them. We can help them. You know, they're not going to research. They're not going to have an adult mind that's going to go research. They're just going to know that they're feeling really intense cravings that they can't control.
Right. Yeah. I'm researching more and more and more about all of this stuff and how food matters so much, and we're changing our diets, and it's a journey. It's just a journey. You just take one baby step at a time. No matter what health, you're trying to accomplish, you just take one step at a time. If it's just taking your supplements, or it's just cutting out, one thing at a time and just trying to balance your body. But I do know that you can't do it without both pieces eventually. You have to use the supplements to help balance your diet. You have to take some supplements. We have to balance our bodies. Our bodies are so out of whack.
And it's been widely accepted for a long time now that we need supplementation. I mean, a lot of people still try to say that, oh, I just want to get my nutrients from our food. It's not possible. I mean, I had a doctor tell me years ago that you could literally have like an organic chef gardening around the clock and you'd still need supplementation. And I think when people understand that, it's not like, oh, should I take a vitamin? Should I add a probiotic in? It's like, no, you absolutely have to, without question. And there are, unfortunately, the ones that are synthetic and cheap. They either don't make us feel any better. We don't see anything change in our bodies, or we actually have an upset stomach or something.
Or they're toxic.
But, let alone toxic.
Toxic with some of the non-methylated vitamins, some of the
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
when you find them and they are available, I use the term they truly are body changing. They truly are body changing. And then Tori, you read a quote from your book. Would you put that in the comments? I think people would love to see you read something about the young girls and the birth control at the beginning, and I'd love to see that in the comments.
Links to the books.
Yeah.
And I want to tell you something too that's going to blow your mind before we're done. I didn't even tell you this on the call, and it just dawned on me last night that I researched this a long time ago. Have you ever heard this about pheromones, birth control pill, and divorce rate? Have you heard any of this before?
No. You're holding out on me.
Fine. I'm going to blow your mind now. And no need to talk about it. Don't anybody comment anything ugly. Like, just think about it, okay? Just think about this. Like, let this simmer.
Be open.
Lots of studies that have been done on our pheromones. When we suppress our natural hormone production, we suppress our pheromones. Pheromones are the way that we have been created to attract mates. When we are suppressing our natural hormone production, we attract a different mate. When we go off our hormones, we are no longer attracted to the same mate, which there are some people doing some fantastic research and really fascinating research on why we are having such a high birth control or high divorce rate and how it's related to birth control. So there's been and how like monkeys are not attracted to women who are on birth control pills and on synthetic hormones. Some interesting studies done with men and how they find women more attractive, whether they're prettier or not, based on hormones. So like the supermodel and they don't pipe in the pheromones is not as attractive as the ugly girl that they put a picture of who has pheromones. Because pheromones matter like immensely.
That's awesome.
Also, there's actually like an evolutionary ladder, and women are attracted to a different man based on their hormones. So there's been some studies done, and like one of the ladies who did a talk about it, she was like, all these women came up to her after and were like, I understand why my daughter's with that deadbeat, because she's using contraception and she's attracted to a different man. I'm not saying all of you who married men, they're all deadbeats, right? But it's interesting information, and it's interesting to correlate the fact that our synthetic hormones affect our pheromones and affect who we attract and who we're attracted to, and some of that stuff that's going on with our mate choice. And also
I think it's fascinating that they're studying the separation rate based on that. That's because that's something that's measurable. That's fascinating.
You're on hormones for 10 years. So you're on hormones when you're trying to find a mate. So you are attracted to a different person. Then you get off the hormones when it's time to have babies. You have babies, and then you're like, who is this person I'm married to? And you think it's because you had babies, maybe, right? But it's just a hormone thing. You're not attracted. Actually, there was a study done where they said that most people in marital counseling don't like the smell of their mate. Why do they not like the smell of their mate during that divorce time? It's because they've gotten off their hormones and they no longer are attracted to the smell, which is a pheromone thing. It's just interesting, right? It's just interesting. Just think about
so interesting.
Some of these things that we're doing to our bodies are so far reaching that we can't even, we haven't thought about all the implications. I mean, think about
is amazing.
Like your sex drive. I mean, we're as women, we've gotten on birth control to, for sexual liberation, right? And then we don't even we don't want to be intimate because we are on synthetic hormones that suppress our sex drive. It's just backwards. So there are.
And I have so many friends, of course, I would never, ever name names. I have so many friends who are on medications, synthetic medications for a list of ailments. And they literally, I could name them right now, and I feel for them, but they really struggle with their sex drive. And to not correlate illness and remedies with how our body's just trying to function, and that these underlying root causes are all interwoven. Hormones are interwoven with our gut, with our inflammation. It's all interwoven. The things that we take, especially synthetic things, are tearing up the gut. I mean, taking synthetic hormones while we're at it. And it's really, really sad. I mean, it's unfortunately more common, the low sex drive. It's too low, too common that people have low sex drive. What's that?
While you're on the pill,
it's
forever because it affects your hormone production later, and that's testosterone. The sex drive thing is testosterone.
That's so fascinating.
I know,
Corey.
I know.
That's so fascinating.
It's so interesting. And here we are, so many people on it. And I don't judge anyone. I talk to people sometimes because they are like, we talk about gut health and we talk about hormones and insulin and things like that. And they're like, I gotta be honest, I'm a birth control. I'm like, I get it. Like, I get getting
no judgment
thing, like no judgment. I know it's an issue. It's starting a natural family planning chart and starting that process as, a married woman, or after you've already had 3 or 6 kids. Like, I get it. It's a thing. But it is really worthwhile if you look up the divorce rate of couples who do NFP, natural family planning. I mean, it's interesting information. Like I said,
I love it. I love it.
And ask for help. We do natural family planning now, but I love doing my chart, and I feel like knowledge is power, and I think women should be charting their cycles. And that is the knowledge of what's going on inside your body. Your chart, your cycle will tell you what's happening, and it'll give you an to find the answer and find that root cause and heal your body and have optimal.
Well, I'm glad you say that you enjoy doing it. You like to see it. Like, it's when you're in tune with your body, and don't just let a doctor tell you what to take and ignore it, but you actually have to do a practice and exercise that forces you to be in tune with your body. It's actually really cool.
And it's really helpful to know, like, my hormones say that I'm normal progesterone, but I know by my cycle that these little markers show me that I am a little low progesterone. Maybe not like off the charts, like terribly, but I'm in tune enough with my body to know that, and to know that supplementation will help me to feel better, and to be able to optimize that. So, So
cool.
Now, should we answer questions? I feel like there's some people who've, I don't know if they're still watching, but there's been people who've asked some questions about,
I think I turned off my comments because I can't see them.
Heather said something about, she wants to know my daily regimen. And PCOS, no periods, getting on. Why don't you answer this, Cher?
I can't see the question because I think I turned off the comments, so you tell me.
wants to know our daily regimen. I'm assuming yours and mine. And I can talk to her offline, but if I get off birth control and have a natural period each month, that would be great. I have PCOS with no periods.
Okay, so my answer to that is, of course, you totally can. I know countless people, I'm not kidding, this many years into talking about this and doing this, I know countless people who have. It's just what your expectations are. You have to understand that hormones are slow and steady. So just give it time. If you're very used to, because you have controlled your hormones, you're very used to an immediate control over result quickly, you're going to be introducing your body to come back to its own hormone production. So just give it time. Like, you know, when they say the average to reverse and heal is a 3 to 6 month window, that's an average, which means for some people it could be 7 or 8. For somebody, people it could be 1 or 2. So just let your body come back. I've also found that age, like my daughter, her cycle reversed really quickly, 1 to 2 periods, and she was feeling fine again. But she's younger, so you have, you know, that factor to weigh into it too. It's always worth it, always worth it. So balance your insulin, heal your gut, and allow your cycles to come back. And that's all that I did. That's all that I did. So again, Tori can text you offline what the products and the dosing and all that kind of stuff that we do. But it's the same answer. It's let your gut reverse, let your hormones balance, and let your period just come back on its own natural cycle. I have no pain on my period anymore, none. I was hospitalized often for it, emergency room, really, really strong pain medication. I would have cystic ovaries. I'd have ruptured cysts all the time that were agonizing, all that stuff, nothing. I have nothing anymore. And it's not because of my age. I'm talking about years ago when I began doing this and reversed all of these and healed these underlying root causes. That's when it happened. I'm so grateful.
And I think it's necessary to mention again that it's going to take time and money. And I think it matters to talk about the fact that paying for good food and paying for good supplements,
yes,
it does cost more money than going to the doctor and getting a prescription that may or may not be free, but it is so worth it in the long run.
Yeah.
We underestimate the cost of our medical bills and things like that over time.
Yep.
And we don't always associate that surgery or whatever, you know, look back 20 years and all the things that we could have done more healthily to help that. So I think it matters to talk about that and just accept the cost, because we spend a lot of money on that. For
sure.
It matters.
And if you want, after, I can go through in the comments and put that in writing too.
Okay.
Because it's the comments in writing.
And Bridget's asking what to take instead of birth control. So that is different. Sorry, I've got looking at your nose. That is different with women versus little girls. As far as like,
it depends on what the cause. If it's for contraception, it's a whole different conversation than it's for painful periods.
Absolutely. And like there are synthetic hormones and there are natural hormones. And I personally take natural hormones already to optimize my health and plan to do that in different ways. Women usually don't need estrogen unless they have none in menopause. Usually need progesterone, and there are many natural versions of it.
Awesome.
You have to pay for it out of pocket usually. But anytime you go to the doctor, I tell people this all the time. If a doctor gives you synthetic progesterone, like I went in once for heavy bleeding after a birth, and the doctor just gave me synthetic progesterone, and all I said was, "Can I have the natural one?" And he's like, "Why?" So because I want the natural one, and he's like, "Okay, I guess." Like, you know,
weirdo, hippie.
Ask a question. You know what I mean? Like, if you're given progesterone for something, ask the question, "May I have the natural one?" There is a natural one. It doesn't make as much money, but for you know, anyone, but you can ask for it. So ask that question. For women, there are natural versions of hormones if you need hormones. There's actually one progesterone only birth control pill. I don't think it's natural though. So I think that's interesting, you know, information to research. You can take natural progesterone and suppress your cycle. I don't know if that's a good choice to make. Natural family planning is good for birth control. There's still like the diaphragms and stuff like that. They're non-hormonal, right? Non-hormonal birth controls. And then, is there anything else to add about that?
No, I mean, if it's for birth control, I'm with you. So natural family planning, of course, but the like the copper IUD, it's the only one I know of that is a non-hormone IUD.
Okay.
And they'll typically try to scare you and give you all these feedback. You'll have really heavy periods. It'll be very painful. Everyone I know who has used that has not been their experience. So,
but research, right? Ask around.
Always.
Do the research. Okay, put comments if you have questions, and we'll both go back and check the comments.
Oh, there you are. No, you are. Yeah,
Um,
okay. Yeah, I was
it was
going to
fun.
say, I'm so grateful.
I hope we helped someone. Hope so.
I'm sure we did. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Okay.
Bye.